Welcome to MCN, and today we've been riding the all-new Hero Xpulse 4V 200, an all-new trail bike that's set to make waves both in the UK and Europe, not least because of its incredibly attractive price. So let's get that price out of the way. For the standard version, this red and black one here, you're looking at £2,799. And for the white one, which is the pro version, it's just 200 quid more at 2,999. That's £3,000 for a brand new bike. Now, I'm sorry if that sounds like a sales pitch, but the price is something that's really going to be the deciding factor for a lot of people in these bikes. So the question really is it worth spending £3,000 on a brand new bike? Well, we've been putting them through their paces here in the Trough of Bowland. We're here at Inch Perfect Trials. We've been on road, we've been off road, we've had a little bit of mud, a little bit of gravel, a little bit of tarmac. And really it's been an ideal test just to see if these bikes are what they're supposed to be. Now, if you're looking for an enduro bike, you're looking for a motocross bike, these aren't it. Let's be real about this before we even get started. What these are cheap, accessible trail bikes. They're for easygoing, hard-packed surfaces. Yeah, you'll get away with some mud and some ruts and things like that, but you know, you're not going to be racing enduro in these or doing anything like that. They're very much entry-level bikes. Who is Hero? You've probably heard of Hero from their partnership with Honda. That started way back in 1984, and they produced bikes for the Indian market, Southeast Asia. They became one of the biggest, most prolific manufacturers in that part of the world, if not the biggest in terms of output. So they became an independent company in 2011. They've been knocking out bikes since then. We've already seen the Hunk 440, and that's got a lot of good reviews as a mid-sized bike. But these are an entirely different prospect. They haven't been designed for the UK. They've been designed primarily for the Indian market. And the roads out there can be quite tough. You know, it can be quite hard. Royal Enfield have always been really successful out there with their bikes that are pretty much built to handle pretty much anything. They'll batter through potholes and all the rest of it. And when you think that that's the market these bikes have been designed for, then really they should be able to cope with hills, gravelly trails, that kind of thing over a weekend. Okay, well, let's start looking at some details, because in essence, these bikes are identical. I'll come onto the Pro and explain what you get for your extra 200 quid in a moment. But let's talk about the engine first of all. It's a 199cc, 4-stroke, air oil-cooled engine, single cylinder. We've got 19 horsepower and 12.8 foot-pounds of torque. But to be fair, they're geared quite well, so it's enough just to be able to ride these bikes and have some fun on. So when we're out on the trails, I mean, we're riding first, second, third gear on a lot of it, and they pull along quite nicely. I've ridden 2 or 3 different bikes. They've all been set up slightly differently. The throttle's been slightly different on all of them. They are brand new and they are cable operated throttles, so there's a good chance that they just need setting up properly. But in essence, you've got the go there off the twist grip, give it a little twist, and they've got power of sorts. They do chug along quite nicely. We actually had a chance to give them a bit of a hill climb. To be honest, you want to keep it in first gear to keep it going, but they do keep going. It's like the little engine that could. These things will just keep on going. They don't rattle. I've not heard anything rattly or clattery or anything like that about them. They just really do work quite well. It feels like, for what it is, quite a strong little motor. Obviously, time will tell, mileage will tell how these work out, but off the bat, it's enjoyable. There's just enough there. I wouldn't say to put a big smile on your face, but once you combine it with the chassis and the way the whole thing works, for most people who are going to buy this kind of bike, you're going to be satisfied with it. If I was going to compare it to something, let's say I was comparing it to, say, a Honda CRF. I always find that the Honda CRF is a bit disappointing. The suspension's a bit soft, the engine's a bit flat. This has got just a little bit more character than those Hondas have got. In terms of the overall feel of it, think farm bike, think ag bikes. I've spent a lot of time years ago in South Africa riding a Honda CTX 200, the Bushlander, I think they call it. And it's the kind of thing that farmers use to go out, ride around their cattle, that kind of thing. And that's what these bikes feel like. They feel rough, tough, that you could just batter around on it all day long. So suspension-wise, the standard version, it's fairly soft, but it's not really baggy in any way. But there's a little bit of softness at the top of the stroke, but once you're sat on the bike, it settles quite nicely, certainly on the road. I actually really quite enjoyed riding this one on the road. When the going started to get a little bit gnarly on some of the bumpier rocks and the more embedded sort of rocks, it coped quite well, but it does run out of ground clearance. And that's the thing we did find on this. As soon as you start hitting the ruts, the foot pegs start catching on the side of the ruts, your toes start catching, and it's really the overall height of the bike becomes a little bit of an issue. Brakes wise, they feel a little bit wooden, but the brake pads are brand new. It does have switchable ABS on the front end, so you've got 3 different modes. I have tried them all. They all seem to work quite well. There's not a huge difference that I could really tell between each one, but then we haven't had a massive amount of time on different surfaces. So the brakes work well enough. When we were on the tarmac, so I had a sheep run across, and then of course you're ready for the lamb, which ran straight after it, hard on the brakes. It's got the Metzeler Enduro tyres on it, and these work quite well on the tarmac. Even on the wet tarmac, I was getting enough grip to be able to ride the bike, and it's nice that it's got fairly decent rubber on it. You've got both electric and kickstart. How well the kickstart works is a bit of a lottery. There's quite a few different bikes here, a few different people riding them, and some are really easy to kickstart, some not. So having the kickstart there, if you did get stuck somewhere and lost your starter, electric starter for some reason, at least you've got the possibility and the option to try and get it started again. So the fact that it's got both those systems is a real plus point. The seat, it's fairly firm, but found that when you're sitting on it for any sort of duration, half an hour or so or longer, it still stays firm. It doesn't sink onto the seat pad like you get with some bikes. So it's quite comfortable. And we've got LED lights, which are great. We've got a nice little digital dash. It's also got a USB-A outlet on it, so you can plug in a nav device or your phone or whatever and charge it up. It's got just about everything that you could ask of it. I believe it's got turn-by-turn directions when you use a dedicated app. Unfortunately, that's not something we've had a chance to play with, but it's nice that it's got all those features. And for plodding along, certainly on the standard version, it's not too bad a place to be. In terms of top speed, don't expect much over 60 mile an hour. It'll get to 60 really comfortably, and it will sit at 60 really nicely. It feels like it would haul a little bit of kit as well. So if you wanted to take a tent, lightweight tent, some lightweight camping gear, I think you could probably just about get away with it on one of these for some lightweight, low-cost adventure riding, and that's something that I'm quite keen to have a go at. The seat height of this standard version is 825 millimeters. Now, if I have a quick sit on that with my 32-inch inside leg, it'll just give you a little bit of an idea as to how it sits. So it sags a little bit. I'm slightly bent knees, but I am feet flat on the floor. If you're not very experienced off-road at trail riding or green laning, then it's nice to have the ground within easy touching distance. And if you're a bit shorter than me, you're still going to be able to get both feet flat on the floor. It's also got a nice big lever on the kickstand to find with your heel as well, which is always a nice thing, and quite a nice big foot on it. So that is the standard model, and we'll move over to the Pro version. Now, as I've said, it's 200 quid more. The seat height, that's the best way for us to look at this, is 66 millimeters taller, and that's quite a considerable jump, and that's achieved with longer travel suspension. It's got taller forks, it's got a taller shock. It's also got more adjustability. So the forks, you can adjust compression and rebound. There's no preload on those, but you can adjust the rear. That setup gives it a taller stature. So as you can see, as soon as I sit on this, there's very little sag. There seems to be less sag when you sit on it. Both toes flat on the ground, and yeah, I still feel fairly comfortable on this. The suspension is a bit stiffer on the Pro version, and that actually makes it handle that bit better when we're on the tarmac. It actually feels a little bit more assured, a little bit more confident, a little bit more comfortable. There's less sag, you sit more towards the top of the stroke, there's more suspension to play with. But when you start getting off-road, when we start hitting sort of rocky sections, we're not talking about anything too challenging, we're just talking about those sections of trail where you've got sort of rocks embedded in, and it gives a bumpy, firm surface for the bike to ride on. If you try going too slow, it sits at the top of that stroke, and then it does feel a bit harsh. The more you push it, the more you give it, the more you give suspension chance to move, the better it feels. And that's really, really to its advantage. The Pro version just does work that little bit better. It's got bar risers as well. Obviously that brings the bars up higher. And for me personally, it's far more comfortable to stand up on this bike. In terms of weight, they are around about 160 kilos. I think there's 2 kilos between the standard and the Pro version, with the Pro being slightly heavier. It's got an all metal tank, so it's a fairly chunky, substantial bike, but there is just enough power and go in that motor to pull it along. Been talking about highlights more than anything else, about what makes this bike actually quite pleasant to ride, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows, because obviously this bike is built to a price. So there are certain features of it that are definitely worth pointing out. I mean, one in particular that I want to point out is the oil cooler out on the side there. It's quite flexibly mounted. We have experienced a couple of people dropping these bikes today, and it didn't get touched at all. So it may just be me feeling overcautious about it, and perhaps it isn't as vulnerable as it looks, but it does just feel a little bit vulnerable sitting out on the end there. And if it was to break or come off somewhere when you're on the trails, that could be a bit of a problem. It's fitted with crash bars. They're not the most substantial things in the world. You could argue that they're sacrificial to a certain point. We're talking about a £3 bike, so you can't expect this to be fully armoured. It has got a bit of a bash plate down there to keep the bottom of the engine protected and that exhaust protected. And there are little things as well, like the gear lever, the brake lever. If I was going to buy one of these, then I would certainly consider about maybe having a couple of gear levers and a couple of brake levers in my backpack if I was to go out for a ride, just because they are a little bit prone to get bent if you do drop it. And let's face it, sooner or later you are going to drop it out on the trails. But overall, the build quality seems to be surprisingly good. I'm actually rather impressed with how well this bike has been put together, and we have given them a little bit of a battering today. Can't say that I've seen anything fall off. There's nothing with any rattles, nothing that I've noticed has stopped working. So if you were to get one, maybe spend a few quid on some more decent bark busters, a few little things like that you could just beef it up. So we mentioned some of the switch gear possibly doesn't have the finger feel to it that you would have on a more expensive, a more upmarket bike, but they all work, they all still function. They're just maybe not, perhaps we get too spoilt sometimes with the actual feel of switches. And for a bike that costs less than £3, you know, I'm fairly happy to forgive it little foibles like that. But you know, the components are all good. The bike seems to be well put together. They've put decent tyres on it. You've got Nissan brakes, we've got ABS, comfortable seat, decent riding position. But you know, let's be honest, it's a £3 bike. It comes with a 2-year guarantee that I think is unlimited mileage. It is really cheap and cheerful motorcycling, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It doesn't cost you a lot of money, and certainly for the time we've spent with them, I've rather enjoyed riding them. So the important thing is to not have your expectations set too high. You know, they're not enduro bikes, they're not motocross bikes, they're not hardcore trail bikes. These are old school trailies, farm bikes, ag bikes. That's the kind of thing. You could ride it to work. I haven't checked fuel figures, but I'd be very surprised if these weren't incredibly frugal things. You know, and with the current sort of geopolitical climate, the way everything is at the moment, something like this could really make sense. So, you know, if you are in the market for maybe a second-hand bike to go off-roading in, then the smart money could really be thinking of popping along and having a look at one of these heroes. You'd certainly lose nothing by taking one for a road test. In fact, I'm pretty much going to round off this review by saying there's a good chance I'm going to get my own credit card out and buy one of these, because they really do seem to be genuinely good value for money. And if I get 2 years relatively trouble-free off-road riding out of one of these, I'd feel like I'd actually spent my money pretty well. So that is the Hero Xpulse 4V 200 and 200 Pro. Definitely worth a look if you're in the market for a cheap trailer. Now, if you've got any questions, any comments, anything like that at all, drop them below the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out MCN soon for a full review in print and for everything motorcycling. See you on the next one.